I expect every single one of the tools I'm going to review to make a decent first draft now of any design. Think that's just table stakes at this stage, and it stopped being interesting about a year ago. So I am asking two different questions. The first is, does the tool live where I already work? Meaning, can I hand it my brand, my data, my constraints, and does it hold on to them? And when it hands something back, can I take over and edit it myself the way I would as a human editor, the way I used to, instead of having to prompt every small change until the context fills up and I give up? So the five tools I'm going to look at are Figma Agent, Google Stitch for UI design, Lovart, the Canva AI Assistant, and our own Imagely CoDesign for graphic design. Going to respectively feed these two categories of tools the same prompts and evaluate their output. Here is the prompt for Figma. And Stitch gets exactly the same one after this. Now, design a 3-screen onboarding flow for a habit tracking app. Welcome screen, goal setting, first habit in that very order. Clean, high contrast, large type, one accent color. As you can see, I think Figma executed this almost perfectly. It's very clean. It adheres to the standards of modern apps. It almost looks like something you would find browsing in the App Store. Even the copy is decent and it does not read like a iSlop. It stuck to the screen order. It baked in some interactivity here, indicating a cursor. Um, and it caught small things like remind me every day at 8 a.m. on the habit screen. Overall, very professional, nice feel. So, does it live where I work? Yes. And it's important to disclose why, because this ran inside our own design system. So the icons and fonts and patterns and everything that our designers have created were already good before the agent started, and the agent just used what it had at its disposal. And that's the real advantage here, and not really a fair fight if you evaluate it against a new tool. Same goes for the second question, can I take over? Again, of course, we're in Figma. This is the gold standard of the other four tools, and it's going to be measured against it. If I select the headline here or edit anything in the way I'm used to, I am back in Figma land where I'm comfortable. So there's no prompt, no regeneration, no waiting, unless I really want an entirely different design. So the takeaway here is that Figma Agent is really the only tool that for UI design answers both questions well. It lives where I work because it's Figma and I can select any element, change it by hand. And the caveat here is that half of that belongs to Figma, the product, rather than the agent. So you saw that the output here is customized to Imagely. If I ran this in a clean file, the result would look different, and it's somewhat dependent on the quality of the designs that you have and that you feed to the agent. Now on to Google Stitch. It got the same onboarding prompt, the same 3 screens, but as we can see, Stitch did not adhere to the brief. Habit formation comes before goal setting, so the order is wrong. Button styles are inconsistent, and the look and feel kind of drifts between screens, as you can see in the progress indicator here. This one against this one, and aspect ratios are kind of weird. So just from a bare bones design evaluation subjectively, this is not doesn't really hold up, especially as compared against Figma. So does it live where I work? Kind of unfair question here, seeing as this is a greenfield tool. It's not by default integrated with any other part of my design stack. However, the brand kit here is actually really great. You have colors, accent colors, font spacing, all available for to change globally. But then looking at the output, Stitch didn't really adhere to its own system that well. So the mechanism for holding context doesn't really inspire confidence. Can I take over? I click around here. By some means, I can maybe edit with AI. What about the text? I can edit the text. But the default here seems to be to nudge me towards AI editing, even for small changes and tweaks. And I don't get a familiar design editing interface. So overall, I think the takeaway for Google Stitch here is that it has the mechanism for context and a global brand kit. Doesn't really respect its own system, which is a major drawback. And on taking over, Stitch pushes you into an AI first kind of editing workflow that should not be necessary. So I think on every dimension, Figma easily beats Stitch here by a fairly wide margin, which was to be expected. And as I said, it's unfair to an extent. I think Stitch is still worth using to get a first impression on a screen, especially if you don't have a design system in place yet and you're just spitballing ideas. Then it allows you to iterate quickly, and you don't need much design expertise or skill to just get something usable to start off from. Now we're going to look at the graphic design prompt. This is Lovart. Next up are Canva and CoDesign with the exact same prompt. And the prompt reads as follows. So launch a campaign for cold brew called Northwind, an Instagram post, square, a story, and a DIN A5 flyer. Warm and minimal cream background, one product photo, and give it the headline slow brewed, fast gone. And Lovart was fairly quick, and I have to say this is probably the nicest looking output in the whole video. I have very little to quibble with from an aesthetic point of view. All the subtleties are there. We have the coffee beans, the cloth, and the product placement with kind of dewy glasses. Really pleasing and nice. And it stuck very well to the specification and kind of, yeah, this is what I had in mind. However, if we now look at our questions, does it live where I work? How well does it stick to context? To be fair, I did not link it to a brand here, which is in principle possible with Lovart. However, there is significant drift in between these designs, and Lovart did not create internally consistent design variations. Like look at the logo, and then at the bottle and the labels across the three formats. The brand identity is coming apart between assets. So just as a standalone tool, that makes it unusable. I have to assume that it's not consistent in other aspects as well. So even given that I had a logo, then would the label be consistent? Would the bottling be consistent? So that's a major drawback here. Likewise, if I answer the question, can I take over? Then I want to change the headline. Can't even select it. Now I created a comment, I think. I could set a marker, but it's really confusing. I do not get a design editor here. And I cannot even tell whether this is the same font, so I can't select it. There's the same color. It seems to be slightly different, so another inconsistency. So no layers, nothing I would expect from traditional design canvas, even though I can see some like text here, which I can overlay. But to me, this is a little clunky and hard to discover. So the takeaway here is like Lovart produces great design, but it gives you the least control over the design afterwards. And on the context question, the brand drifts between formats unless you link a brand kit, which I haven't done in all fairness. So whether this is useful depends on what you want to do with it. To prototype something seems absolutely great, and also to give you ideas for a visual identity that's pleasing, but then you always have to take it somewhere else for kind of producing that pixel perfect and consistent work. Now on to Canva. We have the same Northwind prompt, and it also fairly quickly generated 3 very different designs. They look a little bit like Canva just picked something from its template library and populated it, because right from the get-go, it didn't really stick with the brief. This is not a cream background, and why on earth would my drink be displayed on a laptop? This is just plain weird from a design perspective. I actually expected something more like third here, which comes close to what we've seen with Lovart, but overall kind of falls short on the design end. There is a brand feature, so if we open it, even though I don't have a brand connected, Canva can in principle apply your brand guidelines to the design. And when I'm thinking about if I can take over, I'm right in Canva, I can do whatever I want. However, looking at the quality of the design, I might have been better off just going with a template to begin with, because I would have to entirely regenerate this or be more precise. I also don't know what happened to the variants I requested. I can't see them here. Maybe the 3 designs that it gave me were supposed to be the different variants. Then I don't know why they're this different. There seems to be no consistency. So, well, it's something that works quite quickly, and I think might be a nice amenity if it's integrated into your Canva workflow and you already live and work in Canva. There might be some use to it, but for this particular use case, where I want the consistency, where I want these different formats and outputs, it just doesn't cut it, because that's actually what I care about if I want to be productive in a tool. CoDesign, which is our own product, fair disclaimer. It is a local MCP server that gives your agent design superpowers, gives you an editable design straight from your agent, and it's free to use. So what does that mean? I can just copy this line down here, paste it into my coding agent, and then in this case, Claude Code, I think with the Opus model, will take over and design with the help of CoDesign, asking me questions such as, are there brand assets? What kind of shade of color do you want? And in this particular part was like, do you have a product image? And if not, shall I generate one with AI? And if you don't have an AI generation pipeline set up, it even gives you access to your own Imagely dashboard where you have a bunch of credits. So we have an AI gateway. It used this gateway to generate the product photo, and then churned and finally gave me a local URL. So it bundled this editor, which is a fully fledged design editor with AI integrated, running on my machine. This is not a SaaS or a server or whatnot. And a fairly decent master design file. And now I say master design file because along with it, it gave me the 3 outputs I requested. I even have a print ready PDF with the correct CMYK color spaces, something I could send straight to the printer. And since I live in this design editor with an editable template, any change I make here, if I now start designing, can be easily propagated to the variants I requested. So, to answer the questions, does it live where I already work? Yeah, absolutely. It is dependent on an agent that you use, and you can embed it in any context. So how productive it ends up being depends on what data you feed it and what agent you use, what skill you use with it. But it's absolutely designed to slot right in where you work, and it's beautifully consistent as you can see. So there's no drift other than the layout. Try to stick very closely and reduce variation between them other than the sizes we requested. And now, importantly, can I take over? Yes, that is the whole point. It works with Imagely's CSDK or creative editor. And you can even customize this editor here to work exactly how you want it to, and then go nuts designing. And we have a very familiar UI that's usable, I think, by anyone who's ever interacted with any kind of design tool. So it's free. Check it out. Know that this review was as even-handed as I could make it, and judge all these tools on their own, form your own opinion, and have fun designing with agents.